NFL podcast that you guys are going to listen to if you're a BYU fan for the whole 2025 season, because me and my co-host here, Matt Baiamonte, we're going to have this thing rolling all season long. I'm Kyle Ireland, and this is the Cougs in the Pros podcast. Matt, I'm excited to have you on and excited to talk about the NFL players that we've got coming out of BYU and now are in the league.
It's going to be a fun show. I'm glad you're doing this. I'm glad to be a part of it. I think BYU, you really got to tip your cap to Kalani here, Kyle, because this podcast I don't think could have been possible even 5 years ago. There just weren't enough guys to honestly fill a weekly pod. So the fact that it feels like there's a need and an interest in the NFL from a BYU perspective, I think that speaks volumes to the program, and it's going to be fun to track a lot of these guys throughout this season.
Yeah, I know, Matt, you've covered BYU for a number of years now as well. I've covered them here and there throughout, my career as well. But for the last 5-6 years, really focused in on these local guys, was at the NFL draft and have talked to a number of these players. And I know that it's kind of a cool crossover. You saw them kind of come into the league, and I got to continue that. So I'm excited to team up with you, and we're going to have a lot of fun this season talking about all these guys that are, making their marks on Sundays.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Both of us, we spent a lot of time together at KSL. Neither of us there anymore, but like you said, a lot of those dudes, we covered at our time at KSL, and there's going to be guys, that I continue to cover in my new role with BYU Broadcasting. But yeah, hey, we're not coming from a place of just no inside knowledge, right? Like, we were both credentialed members of the media for a long, long time. So I think we'll be able to provide an entertaining and somewhat insightful NFL show here for you.
Well, we disagree on a number of things just in normal life.
Nearly everything. Nearly everything.
It's perfect for a radio show podcast setup. We'll just disagree. There's going to be some good banter. And
hey, we should also tell the listeners, me and Kyle go way back. You're a grad of BYU. I am not. Nope. I graduated from UVU, but I grew up here. So I grew up as a kid going to BYU football games. So first and foremost, I was a BYU fan. Then I had a desire in high school to get into sports broadcasting. Did you do the Greg Wrubell internship?
No, I wasn't with Greg. No.
You weren't with Greg, but you were with BYU Broadcasting.
Correct.
And then where me and Kyle crossed paths was with David Locke and the Utah Jazz. So between Kyle and myself, we have kind of been around a lot of the big media personalities here in the state of Utah. So, I mean, that Jazz thing, it was like a decade ago now when we were with the Jazz.
2014. Yeah, that was when it started. It's been a long time. Don't date us, man. I feel
the uniforms have changed like 10 times since then.
Yeah. Yeah, no good. I think that one of these days we'll have to go back into the camera roll, see if we can find some photos from that season.
I've got some stuff, man.
See how young we look.
Seriously, good point. Well, here's how things are going to work on the Cougs in the Pros podcast. It's going to be a weekly show. It's going to be a recap, but also a look forward show with a focus on BYU and what they're doing in the league. Each and every week, we're going to have players of the week. We're going to pick a game of the week, one that happened in the past, and then also what we think the next game of the week will be, of course, featuring BYU. And then we're going to pick some guys whose stock is going up and stock who's going down. Can't really, in the preseason, Kyle, I think, pick a game of the week. But has there been any interesting storylines that have developed for you through preseason?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I mean, obviously in preseason, a number of these guys that you're actually seeing get reps, they're playing in the game. I mean, they're either starting and only playing a series or two, and then depending on like the team, the coach, some of them don't play at all. And then you've got the guys who are really fighting for those roster spots on the 53-man. And so I think that, there's a few things. Like the first week of preseason, I really enjoyed Kyle Van Noy. He had a sideline interview during the Baltimore Ravens game against the Colts. And that was interesting to see, his perspective as really, a decade plus long veteran in this league, a guy who's won Super Bowls. He's been a guy who's, kind of seen it all, so to speak. And I feel like was written off a little bit a couple of years ago, had a hard time,
absolutely,
latching on with the team. And then, Baltimore signs him a few weeks into the season, then it almost like revitalized his career. And it seems like such a perfect fit. Baltimore just known for being such a strong defensive unit. So I really enjoyed that interview with him. If anybody can find it, I don't know. I haven't gone back and looked, but if it's on YouTube or anything, X, it's worth going back and listening to. But another guy that was interesting to me in week 2, just to kind of go week 1, week 2, was Chris Brooks. I really think that, people forget about him at BYU. And I think he was, I guess, underutilized maybe is a good word for, how he was used that season, his lone year at BYU. But he is a super talented running back. I mean, he spent time with the Green Bay Packers the last couple of years. And, he had some
Hey,
run.
don't forget the Dolphins either. That's where he kind of
the Dolphins
broke into
that.
the league. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. In a stacked running back room in Miami. And so, now I think he's actually at a spot where I was watching him in week 2, and he had some nice bursts coming out of the backfield. And, he doesn't have the pressure in Green Bay with Josh Jacobs in front of him, but he's also a different style running back. And so I think he fits nicely in that offense. It's very, very different than, what Green Bay has had in the past. If you think back to like when Jamal Williams was on that team with Aaron Jones, like they're different style running backs. And so I think that Chris will be a fun guy to watch, and I hope that he gets more playing time this season.
For me, the biggest storyline is what's happening with the Rams. That has the BYU tie with Puka Nacua. Matt Stafford, what a saga that's been this offseason with his health. Feels like, he's going to be healthy, and then he continues to miss practice. The NFC West has some of the best BYU connections in all of the NFL.
That's
with
true.
the San Francisco 49ers, you got Fred Warner and, maybe Jacob Robinson. I don't want to get too far ahead into stock up, stock down.
Yeah.
But you got Fred Warner, you got Puka Nacua, and the Rams were a play away from maybe going to the Super Bowl last year. And if Matt Stafford can't go, or if he is dealing with a back injury all season long, you got to write him off. You have to take them off the list.
Yeah,
so
it's tough.
To me, that's the biggest storyline and really a BYU connection that I'm monitoring. Look, full disclosure, I root for the Rams, and that has more to do with my Laker fandom than anything, because I've been a Laker fan my whole life. And then when the Rams got a team, like, okay, the Lakers, I'll just take on the LA team. But Puka being there is taking it to a new level. But man, they have enough talent to make a run. But if you don't have good quarterback play, you can forget about it. And this Matt Stafford storyline, I was not anticipating it at all, that he wasn't going to be ready to go for the start of the season. And now it's kind of, for lack of a better term, panda watch from Anchorman with Matt Stafford. Like, what are you going to get from this guy?
Yeah, I mean, you might get some Stetson Bennett run, and I mean, I don't know. It's going to get gloomy there.
For the
no, it's going to get gloomy. They really don't have much. Yeah, they don't have much behind him there. I think that the one
thing,
like
Jimmy Garoppolo.
No, I'm out on Jimmy G. Niners are my second favorite team. I saw enough Jimmy G in my lifetime that I don't need to see any more of him. I will say though, the interesting thing you mentioned, them being so close to the Super Bowl a season ago. You've also got to factor in Puka's health. He was banged up all season last year, so you're getting a healthy Puka coming into this year. Obviously, Cooper Kupp is now in Seattle, so I mean, it's like he's the number one wide out there, the number one option, and he's proved that he's one of the top wide receivers in the NFL. But you don't have a guy throwing the ball to you. It doesn't matter how good you are on the outside.
Yeah, that's a great point. So that'll be interesting. Let's get into. This is all going to make more sense when the season begins. But can we pick a player of the week? I think we can. Who's your player of the week for preseason week 2?
I'm going to make it tough for you because I'm going to pick the easy and obvious choice in Zach Wilson because he scored a touchdown. I'm going to take that so that way I see who you pick. I go with the easy one. No, Zach. I mean, we got to talk about Zach. I'm sure we're going to talk about him, throughout the season because I fully expect him to get some playing time with the Dolphins, just knowing Tua's health. And, hopefully he doesn't get hurt. I mean, I don't wish injury on anybody, but obviously teams sign backup quarterbacks for a reason. And Zach, I think, is one of those premier backup quarterbacks in this league because he's obviously super.
Premier, I'm not ready. I'm not
No,
ready to go
premier.
there.
And the reason why I'll say that is because he's shown enough flashes. It's just the consistency that has not enabled him to be a starting quarterback for any team. I mean, he didn't play at all last year. He sat behind Bo Nix, obviously, in Denver. And so well rested. He's not banged up at all. And I actually think that it'll be fun to see him, operating inside of a real offense because New York was New York and has been a train wreck for how many ever years now. We don't have to go through that whole saga. But I think that Zach being in that offense with Mike McDonald, or McDaniel, sorry, I think that that'll be a good fit for him. I think that him being able to have some freedom, some flexibility, to like not have any pressure behind him. Like that was the thing last year is like he got traded over. They had already drafted Bo. And so like, there was also like there was no expectation there. And then he didn't end up playing at all. Whereas now, one injury away, he's the next guy up. He doesn't have Jared Stidham. It's like, who are you going to choose? Like it will be Zach if Tua can't go for whatever reason. And I think that based off of what I've seen online and social media, there's a number of Dolphins fans out there who would actually prefer to see Zach than they would see Tua.
That's crazy.
I don't know about that either. Tua is pretty good when he's healthy and playing well. But I think that the Dolphins were smart to sign him. You saw the talent. You saw, obviously in preseason, like you're going up against second string backup guys and whatnot. So like you can't write a lot into his performance, but he was efficient and, led a touchdown drive. He led 2 scoring drives in week 1 as well. So no turnovers, some good play out of Zach. And that's really all you can ask and hope to see from him in the preseason. So that way, if it's week 7, week 8, somewhere down the line and he has to get thrust into the spotlight, hopefully he's ready and, has integrated himself into their offense enough by that point in time as well.
I'm going to do co-players of the week out of Cincy. Caleb Etienne, I think, has done some nice things in Cincinnati. He's in a real position to make the team.
Yeah.
To me, I feel like he's already made the team. Maybe not the 53-man. I include the practice squad as making the team, personally. Those people get elevated all the time. I think he's at least a practice squad player. Maybe we'll make the 53. And then I think Ryan Rico has had a really nice preseason for Cincinnati. He has cemented himself as the Bengals punter. So those are my 2 picks. Zach is the clear choice. Because going into this preseason, it's fine. It's fine. It was the obvious choice, Kyle.
It's preseason. It's a preseason podcast. We're good.
Exactly. It's preseason. Well said. The NFL doesn't care about preseason that much anymore anyways. It's not nearly as interesting as it used to be. But Zach was in an interesting spot going into this preseason because there was a world in which if Quinn Ewers is better than him, Zach maybe gets cut. So he's needed to play well, and I think he has played well enough to be the backup heading into the season, and that's a good, strong development for Zach.
I'll say the other thing just real quick on Zach before we move on. Zach's played in that division before, and so he's familiar with the other teams. Maybe, he doesn't have to worry about the Dolphins, but like he knows a little bit about the Jets defense. Obviously, a new regime there in New York, but he knows a lot of those guys on that team still, even with the turnover over, a year now that he's been removed from that program. But he's also really familiar with the Patriots and he's familiar with the Bills. And there's, a lot of familiarity that carries over year to year in the NFL. And so I think that Zach, if he, has to, he can utilize a lot of that previous knowledge and experience. You think about just film study and all of the time that you spend Monday through Saturday prepping for a game. It's all those types of things that will help him in this new role. And I also just think that, some perspective change for him, different scenery. Who wouldn't want to live and play football in Miami? Like come November, December.
I don't think that I would want. I wouldn't want to play down there right now.
Right now, no, for sure. Fall camp would be terrible.
Yeah,
exactly.
Fall camp would be awful.
No, totally, for sure. The humidity would be pretty brutal right now. Fall camp is still summer in Miami, and so I totally agree with you there. But yeah, no, interesting. And I think that as we get to, I think roster cuts are within the next week, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to double check and look and see what day that is. I feel like the other day when I was looking, it was coming up within 2 weeks, and so that might have been a week ago. So roster cuts will come here soon, but I think that there's a number of guys that we'll see on obviously the full roster, but you also see guys on the practice squad, and then you've got guys like Jamal Williams, who's a free agent right now. Max Tooley, we talked about earlier before this call, Matt. You'd mentioned, him just recently signing with the Vikings. So there's a lot of player movement here and there, and I feel like that always happens with these BYU guys. There's a number of them who are, I don't know how to say it any better, but fringe NFL guys maybe is how I would put it, where maybe they get called up, maybe they're on a practice squad midway through the season. Some talented guys that are free agents right now that were draft picks. So I still expect some movement as we head into the season as well.
Let's go into stock up and stock down. I want to start first. It's you sniped player of the week. Stock up for me, there's a few different ways I feel like you could go with this, but I'm going to give it to Tyler Batty. I think that his stock is as high as it's ever been. He's got a chance to make the 53, Kyle. Like, it's going to come down to the wire. But he's put a lot of good film on tape in the NFL. He's been disruptive. He's batted balls into the air. He's helped force turnovers. And I think, too, that nastiness that we saw in a social media camp video where he pushed J.J. McCarthy and it turned into a fight, you got to think that Brian Flores just loves that kind of tenacity that you get from a Tyler Batty. So I've just been really impressed with him. I think he's got a shot to make the 53. He's stock up for me this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go stock up with Keaton Slovis, Houston Texans quarterback. You've got him battling for the third string spot there behind Davis Mills, their backup quarterback for C.J. Stroud. I say that because he's familiar being with the Texans already last season.
Right? Is that the battle for three?
And Graham Mertz was absolutely horrendous last week, throwing 3 interceptions, I believe it was. So I would say that, a nice performance. I mean, he wasn't lighting it up or anything this last week. I think he was 5 of 13, but no turnovers. Saw some mobility out of him as well out of the backfield. And you saw that at BYU, his only year in Provo, the games that he did play, that is. And so I think that Keaton.
I never saw what he did yesterday, though. Or was it today or yet?
No, it was yesterday. It was Saturday. The
eludes
16th.
The sack and outran NFL defenders to pick up a. Yep. I mean, that was. I feel like he's gotten more athletic since he left BYU.
Yeah, I mean, there's only one way up, right? I will say I was surprised, to see him in Provo actually running the ball and having quarterback sneaks. It felt like BYU didn't know what that was in their offense, and then all of a sudden Keaton was, running QB Coopers and had never done so in his career at Pitt or USC. So there's something there to unlock. But I think that, Keaton Slovis coming out of high school, going to USC, he got a lot of, hype around him, some accolades. I mean, even his freshman year, BYU played and saw him. And you saw, even when he was at BYU, he wasn't anything amazing, but he's talented. He's a good player. He just turns the ball over too much. And so if he can keep that clean, use his athleticism to the best of his ability when he needs to and can, I think that those would be pros for him and hopefully can help him stay on an NFL roster. And, I expect him to be their practice squad, running scout team again this year in Houston after what I've seen so far through 2 weeks.
Bonus stock up for me, Jacob Robinson. I just want to sneak that in. I think that it was hard for me not to. I had to go with Batty, but Robinson was right there. Stock down for me. I feel like this is the obvious choice, and it pains me to say it. It pains me to say it. Taesm Hill in New Orleans. I think he's got to
stock up, man. I almost did.
I think he might get cut.
You think it's over? Huh?
I think it's possible, not because the Saints don't love him, and not because he's not valuable still. I still think he is valuable. I think the problem is his age, his hit against the cap, and the timeline of the Saints. They're talking about starting Tyler Shuck, for heaven's sakes. He is he's an older college guy, but he's way younger than Taesm Hill.
Yeah.
I think the Saints want to get cheap. I think the Saints want to get young. Where does Taesm Hill fit into that? You can make the case, and I would certainly make this case if I was in that building. I'd make the case for his leadership, his work ethic, and Taesm Hill, to me, is one of the most selfless team players in the history of football. Time and time again, this dude has done what's best for the team and what's right for the team, and it's been at a disservice to his career and his development. He's done it multiple times. To me, wouldn't you want that guy in the building to tutor and develop these younger guys? I just wonder, though, because there's been some chatter online, is that just too expensive considering, is he even going to play this year? Because if you're Taesm Hill, you're guaranteed to get paid. You got hurt in December. Why would you come back? And then do you hold a spot for him, even though he could be on the designated injury list, whatever. There's a lot of roster manipulation that you can use to keep people but not take spots away. And that's maybe what the Saints do. But he's not cheap. And I don't know. And part of me wants him to get cut too, because could he get picked up by Sean Payton again in Denver or a contender? Like I talked about the Rams earlier. Think about what Sean McVay could do with a Taesm Hill and, with Stafford and Pook. So there's a lot of places that could use Taesm Hill. I just feel like right now, though, when you're talking about is he going to make a roster, I would say his stock is trending down because of how much he costs and the fact that he's hurt.
I wonder if there's just a comfort level there in New Orleans with him. Obviously, having been down there for as many seasons as he has, and maybe at this point in his career,
it's coming up on 10 years.
Doesn't want to change the scenery and is familiar.
I'm sure he doesn't want to change the scenery, but it's just
I wonder
play.
if they just try and restructure his contract. Maybe that's been done before in the past. The Saints are one of those teams. You mentioned their cap stuff earlier. They are a terrible cap team, but they always make it work because they always push stuff in the future. They always do it. Every year, there's always some finagling. You've got, Cam Jordan, some new deal, changed to a signing bonus, pushed off into the future. We're going to worry about that in 2030. That's their mindset. And so I could see them doing something like that again if they value him. Obviously, you've got new head coach, new staff there, completely different. But I will say, you've got an offensive-minded head coach now, a guy who's played quarterback before, and you don't have a defensive head coach in Dennis Allen, who I don't feel like even cared about Taesm Hill. And so
totally.
there might be a little bit of a difference there in philosophy that, maybe there's some future for him in the Saints offense. But the Saints, man, they're a mess. They're not going to be a good football team for a few years.
And I think for all those reasons, I'm sort of rooting for him to get cut because I think he's still got a little left in the tank, and I'd love to see him compete. It feels like he hasn't been in the playoffs in a long time. I want him to be on a winning team, making a difference. So I guess I am rooting for him to get cut so that he can find a new home.
No, I can see that as well. Me and you, we are both Taesm truthers. We've been on Team Taesm. Sorry, that's a tongue twister. For many years now. And you mentioned, his path of, quarterback play. We could go on and on. That's a different story for a different day. But I would say my stock down would have to be Blake Freeland, a guy that I just think is awesome. Oh, Blake.
Not from the Colts, not your beloved Colts.
Such a good dude. Plays for my team. As a draft pick there, going into his third season now, and just it's rough, man. Broke his leg yesterday, and it's probably going to be out for the season now. So feel bad for Blake, but it's also one of those things. He was struggling, man. He was struggling last year, and then through 2 weeks in the preseason, there were a few times. Obviously, I watched all the Colts, both of their first two games in the preseason, and just seeing some plays where, he had moments where he played well, but there's a reason why he was on the fringe of that offensive rotation. They've drafted tackles since drafting him, so there wasn't anything solidified there. I feel bad for Blake, man. Good dude, but probably going to be out for the season, I would assume. That hasn't been finalized, but, big offensive lineman like him breaking his leg middle of preseason, just have to think that he's going to be out for a long time, at least a few months. So shout out to Blake. But yeah, I'm going to say stock down just because of that. Already kind of just fighting for a spot on the team. And, I wouldn't be shocked to see him with somebody else next season. I think he's got talent. I mean, played basketball in high school, super athletic guy, big, tall. You saw what he did at the combine and his vertical jump. So there's pieces there to work with. It just hasn't come together so far, our first couple years in Indianapolis. So shout out to you, Blake. But yeah, that's who my stock down is this week.
Well, good stuff. Good debut, good start. I think probably next time we'll go through the full list of guys who made teams, who didn't, where they're at, and then after that we'll just be rocking and rolling every single week with players of the week, games of the week, stock up, stock down, recapping everything NFL that involves BYU football. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I think it's going to be really fun, really exciting. We're going to get college football rolling here, and then we're going to get the NFL first week of September. So looking forward to doing the pod with you. And be sure to follow Matt, everybody. You can follow him on X, social media accounts. He's Baiamonte Matt, and then I am Kyle. You can follow Royal Cougars and Cougs. And we'll be back again next week with the Cougs in the Pros podcast.